Prologue. Act 1. Tika and Ardal. Time is change. Rukram. Thunderous rain fell with fury. Tika held the baby against her chest. She stepped carefully under mangrove branches. Water was above her waist. "Forgive us, fathers. Forgive us, mothers," she whispered into the baby's ear. "We know not what we do." She hoped the spirits were watching. The boy was born from sin. Tika saw the hidden temple through the downpour. The master practiced atop the stone megalith. The circular pyramid had 3 main steps. An enclosure at the top served as the master's quarters. The master had practiced alone for decades. She had known the hidden temple all her life. The elders said the old spirits had built it to sacrifice men. The shamans had forbidden anyone from going near it. Tika would not always listen to them. She was caught on her 8th birthday. Her parents stood by as she was given 12 lashes in the muddy village square. She was careful since then. As an adult, she had never been so close. Master Ardal met her at the first step. He extended his hand and helped her out of the water. She kept her eyes on her feet. The stairs were strange. No mortar. It was all cut from one enormous block. She saw a carved serpent on each side of the steps. Tika was young when the master first arrived from Land's End. Ardal sought sanctuary in the hidden temple. He asked the elders first, but they denied him. They declared him a looter. They banned him from ever visiting the holy site, saying that he would only desecrate it. Tika had been happy to show the way. After offering her name, she learned his was Ardal. He had been a soldier for the Blood King. He was in search of solitude. He never spoke with anyone again. No one had lived in the temple before. The shamans called him foul names. Once they gathered at the mangroves to yell at him. Master Ardal ignored them and continued to meditate. Once out of the rain, the master brought Tika a blanket. He laid out a warm cup of canelazo and a bowl of rice and corn. He held his hands out with a smile. She gave him the child and reached for the warm cup. The master cradled the baby and rocked him gently. It was the first time the boy had been quiet and calm. "What is his name, Tika?" The master spoke lovingly. She was startled that he remembered her. She had been so young. She had since mothered and survived 5 children. Then Tika noticed he hadn't aged a day. He still appeared to be youthful and energetic. "His mother died before giving him a name, master." Tika averted her eyes. "Who was his mother?" He gently wiped raindrops from the baby's forehead. "A girl from my village who gave her parents heartache. She was caught stealing from the chief." Tika shook her head to ward off the memory. She sipped the hot canelazo. "He abused her. The boy is the result. His mother was exiled and attacked by the jaguar. Poor thing barely made it to my hut. She knew that I was a known of herbs. She begged me to help her." "You could only save the child." Ardal spoke softly. Tika nodded. "I took him to the shamans." She took another sip from the canelazo. "They said the boy was cursed." "No child is born cursed." The master shook his head with sadness. "They say his mother was a witch." Tika let her eyes fall to the floor. They say we must sacrifice him to appease the spirits. Killing only appeases an inner darkness, the master said. Other men arrived seeking Ardal. He was a known in every jungle kingdom. The first men wore purple and carried banners. Later, the heavily armed men wore only their own emblems. Each arrived with the same quest: defeat Ardal in single combat. Each failed. Master Ardal was undefeated. I brought him to the only holy place I know. Tika looked up at the master again. This is the only place he will be safe. I will protect him while he lives here. Ardal looked comfortable in fatherhood. Will he become a known of fighting as you are? Tika couldn't help but be excited for the boy. He would know the sacred techniques. Will he be able to conquer any man like you? The goal of Shotozen is not to conquer other men. The master looked down at the baby as he spoke. The point is to conquer the self. Time has washed away his name, Tika realized. 10 years had passed since anyone had arrived to challenge him. He had been swallowed by the hidden temple. Tika had followed him when she was younger, but he would disappear into the trees. Tika's sons had discovered the same. No one knew if he so much as farmed or fished. The shamans said the boy was an ill omen. They say it signals an age of war. Tika hoped to learn with her limited time with the master. Why would holy men wish death upon a child? Men make war, not children, the master said. Men wish death by their own ignorance. They do this because they fear change. He held the sleeping baby in one arm and took a sip of canelazo. They manifest many ways to justify their actions. But the baby's mother, Tika could still hear the screams in her head. She said the child was her curse as well. How could she see life as a curse? It's easy to curse that which does not conform to our pride. Ardal seemed to speak more to himself than to Tika. He nodded as if making a decision. What brought you here, master? Tika lifted rice and corn from the bowl to her mouth with wrinkled fingers. The food was delicious, and she ate hungrily. I had traveled to Land's End hoping to learn about its culture. The city-states there were constantly at war. Every kingdom thought itself the rightful ruler of the entire Nozama Delta. I discovered the monks of Shotozen and joined their order. Master Ardal paused, handing the baby back to Tika. Shotozen monks stood with King Sturzin when the region was invaded by Lodka. Together, they defeated the invaders. Ardal spooned more helpings of rice and corn into Tika's bowl. Thank you, master. Tika bowed her head over the baby. I was determined to put an end to the violence. King Sturzin controlled the only castle built on the Nozama River. I asked the king for the privilege of tutoring his young son and heir, Prince Hauskar. I spent 9 years with the prince. Tika would not interrupt him. She had never heard the name of the Blood King. The baby began to squirm and stretch. She tried to rock him back to sleep slowly, hoping that Ardal would continue. He stood at the door, staring out at the dark clouds. I arranged a marriage between Hauskar and the princess of the inland kingdom of Puvia. Hauskar and his younger brother conquered the coast. After Hauskar was crowned, he told me his brother had been plotting to have him assassinated. I defended his brother and told him that he could not be capable of such a thing. Master Ardal looked back at the boy in Tika's arms. Haskar was at war with himself. He justified the massacre and his brother's murder. Tika finally understood why Master Ardal had sought asylum. Like the shamans and chiefs of her village, the jungle kings were unjust and brutal. All her life she had thought that places beyond the jungle would be different. Haskar ordered the death of the Shotozen monks. He called them traitors. He burned down their monastery. Haskar levied a bounty on my head that could field an army. Pain filled the master's eyes. It was clear that my laws would not be heeded. I have never left a city with so much heartache. If you had not left Land's End, Tika spoke timidly. She looked down at the baby in her arms. You would not have been here to protect this boy. Master Ardal sat down across from Tika. That is true. I've lost every son. The boy looked up at Tika and smiled. His eyes were bright spheres of joy. Tika felt her heart melt. I saw my husband's face grow scales like a lizard. I watched his fingers shrivel up like the roots of a dying tree. The shamans buried him moons ago. I will have no more sons. Ardal drained his canalazo. He will grow up here, but should have access to the outside world. He let out a long, resolved sigh and looked at the boy. Ask passing boats and merchants for spices and literature. Every full moon, bring him foreign books and food. It would be an honor. Tika bowed her head reverently. The thought of being close to the temple once a month was incredible. Her heart skipped. She tried to keep calm. But what should the boy be called? The master thought. His name shall be Iota. Neither the sky nor earth may claim him from the law. End of prologue.